Real GDP grows by 5.01% year-on-year in second quarter 2021 from 0.51% in 2021. Stakeholders say Nigeria is on the path of economic recovery. President Buhari announces 287 billion naira profit after tax for NNPC. And oil prices rose on Friday to end the week's trading on a positive note. Details of this and more on Business Express, and we are reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. Good to have you join us on the business side of life, and we start with the continuation of the cheering news that Nigeria's economy has grown by 5.1% in the second quarter of 2021. The statistics released by the National Bureau of Statistics this Thursday indicates that the growth of the economy surpasses the earlier projection. Details with Musaba Baliu.
The analysis of the figures released by the National Bureau of Statistics indicates that the country's gross domestic product (GDP) maintained growth for 3 consecutive quarters. The last negative growth recorded was in the second quarter and third quarter of 2020. Factors identified as responsible for the growth are the gradual return of major commercial activities post-COVID-19 lockdown, as well as local and international traveling.
Businesses are reopening. Those who were under lockdown are getting back to work. But if you look at the growth year on year and then certainly what was recorded, you will find out that we have not really gotten to where we're supposed to be. It's a gradual process if you look at the baseline from where we are coming in 2020.
Aggregate GDP therefore stood at 39.123 trillion naira, higher than the second quarter of 2020, with aggregate GDP of 34.023 trillion naira. During the period under review, the non-oil sector contributed 92.58% to the nation's GDP, higher than 90.75% recorded in the first quarter of 2021. The growth was driven mainly by growth in trade, information and communication, transportation, electricity, agriculture, and manufacturing. The oil sector contributed 7.42% to total real GDP in second quarter of 2021, down from the figures recorded in the corresponding period of 2020. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu.
And President Muhammadu Buhari has welcomed the second quarter 2021 report by the Nigerian National Bureau of Statistics, showing a third consecutive quarter of positive growth of Nigeria's economy, as well as the highest quarterly growth in GDP since 2014. Musa Abubakar has details.
A statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, shows that the growth, which is a progress from the preceding 2 quarters, is a continuing trend reflecting Nigeria's economic rebound following the COVID-19-induced contractions seen in first and second quarter 2020. The increase is a pointer to the fact that the non-oil sector is a significant contributor to the economic performance in second quarter 2021, with growth of 6.74% in real terms. The President commends managers of the economy for hard work and commitment, urging them to keep at it till the positive development touches the lives and pockets of the average Nigerian. The statement adds that it is gratifying to note that the various policies of the administration aim at boosting agricultural production, improving the business environment, and investing massively in infrastructure are beginning to yield fruit. Equally gratifying is the complementary news of the steady decline in the rate of inflation over the last few months. Looking to the future, the President assures Nigerians that there is much to be optimistic about.
In fulfillment of an earlier pledge by the federal government to publicly announce the financial position of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC), President Muhammadu Buhari has disclosed a net profit, first time in 44-year history of the establishment. The president, who doubles as the Minister of Petroleum Resources, in a statement says he is pleased to announce the declaration of the profit after tax of 287 billion naira in the year 2020 by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. This is sequel to the completion of the statutory annual audit exercise for the year 2020. The statement reveals that the NNPC's losses were reduced from 803 billion naira in year 2018 to 1.7 billion in year 2019, and the eventual declaration of net profit in the year 2020 for the first time in its 44-year history. Meanwhile, the President has approved the appointment of Dr. Simon Harry as the Statistician General of the Federation. A statement by Special Advisor Media and Communications of the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Tanko Abdullahi, says Harry takes over from Dr. Yemi Kale, whose second tenure expired on the 16th of August 2021. Presently, Dr. Harry is the Director, Corporate Planning and Technical Coordination Department of NBS with almost 3 decades of statistical experience. And now to commodities. Selected food price watch data from the National Bureau of Statistics for July 2021 shows that the average price of some commodities increased year on year. The average price of 1 kilogram of tomato increased year on year by 36.45% and month on month by 23.66% to 414.83 in July 2021 from 335 naira 46 kobo in June 2021. 1 dozen of medium-sized eggs increased year on year by 21.82% and month on month by 3.79% to 517 naira 55 kobo in July 2021 from 556 naira 47 kobo in June. The average price of 1 kilogram of rice increased year on year by 12.72% and decreased month on month by minus 0.93% to 552 naira 80 kobo in July 2021 from 557 naira 98 kobo in June 2021. Similarly, the average price of 1 kilogram of yam tuber increased year on year by 20.39% and month on month by 7.37% to 308 naira 72 kobo in July 2021 from 287 naira 54 kobo in June 2021. Still talking commodities, oil prices rose on Friday on track of post-big gains for the week on worries about supply disruptions as energy companies began shutting production in the Gulf of Mexico. A look at the commodity prices. The Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA, in a statement, is calling for immediate suspension of implementation of the FIRS tax appeal practice direction by the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court pending its revision. The statement stresses that The Council is of the view that if the tax practice direction, which compels companies to pay 50% of assessed tax to FIRS before any appeal to contest the assessment is allowed to proceed, most businesses in the private sector will practically collapse. It says the resolution and call became necessary because feelers from the organized private sector indicate that many businesses have been struggling to survive an unfriendly business environment, which has been made even more difficult due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Council therefore called for immediate suspension of its implementation to enable a robust stakeholders' engagement with the relevant authorities for a revision of the tax practice direction and other onerous tax matters. Well, still talking tax, the tax evasion is one of the major problems of the Nigerian tax system. Taxpayers find tax avoidance delightful, but it is a threat to the economy. January this year, the executive chairman of Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mohammed Nami, said Nigeria lost $178 billion to tax evasion by multinationals in 10 years. A tax expert, Kennedy Ewundu, is a managing partner at Accounting Tools Consulting. He is with me in the studio for this conversation on tax evasion. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you for having me.
Well, to start with, let's begin with the cheering news of Nigeria's real GDP growing to 5.01. What's your take on this growth? Despite, if you go to the market, you see food prices are but even food inflation is on the low. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's a welcome development. It's a welcome development because based on the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, the real growth is coming from the non-oil sector and not from the oil sector, because we've been saying it that the time will come when our crude oil will not be be okay for the economy to move forward. Definitely there's a need to look at the non-oil sector improvement. So for the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics to say that we have had a growth and it's coming from the non-oil sector is a welcome development.
You said from what you're saying, the NBS say, are you not believing this growth? In that case, how would a man on the street actually feel this growth?
Yeah, what I also would have wanted the NBS to do is also to give us on the employment or the unemployment rate.
Okay.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, economy is growing as the statistics says, but a poor man in the street is still unhappy. So what we want MBS to do is that, apart from telling us, I know they usually bring out the employment or non-employment rate in their statistics. This time around, they say that the inflation rate is declining, the GDP
is growing.
So we also want to look at the employment. What's the unemployment rate?
All of those, it's a gradual impact that we'll feel over time. Well, let's go to the meat of the discussion of the day, talking about tax evasion. Tax avoidance and tax evasion are two concepts a lot of people get mixed up about. Can you shed light on the differences or possible similarities?
Yeah, the difference is that tax evasion is illegal.
Okay.
While tax avoidance is legal.
How legal is tax avoidance? I'm curious.
I'm going to explain that.
Okay.
Tax evasion is an illegal way of either not paying your taxes or reducing your taxes.
Okay.
The word is illegal.
Okay.
But tax avoidance is legal in the sense because you have to look at the loopholes in the law to avoid taxes. Let me give you an example. The Finance Act recently stipulates that...
That's that of 2021?
2019 Finance Act.
2019? But you know we have a new one that is operational.
You have 2019, you have 2020, we're waiting for 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, 2019 Finance Act stipulates that if your business, if your company don't have more than 25 million turnover, that you are not going to pay any tax. You're not going to pay VAT, you're not going to pay company income tax, you're not going to pay education tax. Now, you may have a company that will trade up to 100 million. You now decide to split their transactions. You won't use that company to be trading. Decide to use 5 companies to trade, or use 6 companies to trade. Just move the transaction to other companies. And at the end of the day, each one will not have more than 25 million. So you end up not paying tax.
But I don't see that as tax avoidance, but tax evasion.
No. It is you cannot, because the company is a different person.
Because these waivers came as a result of the economic hardship that was
Yes.
occasioned by the COVID-19, the impact of the COVID-19 on the economy and particularly on businesses. That's why this waiver came into play. But if we have companies like you are alleging, if we have companies that get to split their income to avoid that, it's not it's tax evasion.
But you cannot
from my
you
understanding.
can't hold the company responsible, because in the concept that he didn't make more than 25 million is there. So will you ask him to pay tax when the company has not made more than 25 million? And the example is, you may want to start a business, for example,
Okay.
and you'll be advised, don't do this business with a limited liability company, do it with a business name or enterprise. Probably if you do it with a business name, you're going to spend less in paying taxes. You're going to pay taxes less than using a limited liability company. Well, one advantage of using a business name in doing business is, when the business name pays tax, you as an individual have paid your tax. Also, the business name don't pay education tax, which companies also pay education tax. So you have avoided paying education tax because you're using a business name. So it's about tax planning. You can use tax planning to achieve tax avoidance, technically, legally.
Well, the FRS is listening to this. But as an expert, how do we harmonize the systems to ensure that people don't avoid tax illegally?
No,
You call it legal.
If you
So
avoid
whichever
tax
way, let's talk
illegally,
about
it becomes
how we can harmonize this to ensure that government gets revenue that is accruable to it.
No, when you avoid tax legally, the revenue authority has no problem with you. That's the truth. If, for example, if you are to file your returns and you have a lot of tax to pay, and you decide...
We have a case in place now, which will come to it shortly. But big companies are supposed to pay tax to ensure that, to support the growth, to invest in the recovery of this economy, are not doing so. They are evading taxes. How can these loopholes be patched? Whether avoiding or evading, how can these loopholes be closed?
There are two ways you can close up the loopholes. One is through legislation. The tax administrators audit these companies so they can find out some of the loopholes, and also encourage the National Assembly to pass some legislation that will close up the loopholes. Two, sometimes I don't entirely blame those companies. Do you know the reason why I say I don't entirely blame them? I don't entirely blame them because we have regulatory authorities like the Federal Revenue Service,
Okay.
the State Internal Revenue Service, who have obligation to carry out a tax review on that company, has obligation to audit the company. So
Okay.
what are they doing? If they have audited that company and discovered that the company has paid less tax, what are they supposed to do? They have to issue additional tax assessment for the company to pay. So it's not enough to blame the company not paying tax. What are our regulators doing? What are the tax authorities doing? Their responsibility is to ensure that people don't pay or don't evade taxes.
I think they are doing much because they are turning in a whole lot of billions of naira.
Yes.
But well, it's not in my place to say that at this point. If you evade tax in Nigeria, Section 40 of the FIRS Act, you're punishable under that section. So how would you rate compliance?
The compliance, I think compliance in Nigeria in taxes is more on company than individuals. Many companies in Nigeria are doing their best to comply, possibly because of the FIRS structure and their effectiveness to ensure that companies pay tax. But when it comes to individuals, there is far below. How many people pay tax in Nigeria individually?
That is willingly?
Yes, because statistics are showing that more money can even be generated from personal income tax more than company income tax.
Okay.
All over the world, most countries generate more money from personal income tax than the company income tax. You know, and again, in order to enhance the revenue coming from company income tax, government on their part should also make sure that our infrastructure are in place. The infrastructures are not in place, so many companies are struggling to survive. It's not about get the companies, get tax from them, but also provide enabling environment that enable these companies to grow and more companies to come in place, because taxes are a product of transactions, sales, and profit. If government can put up a program where you can have 1 million companies in the next 5 or 10 years, that means you have more taxes to collect.
Okay, there's a tax appeal tribunal which ordered multi-choice Nigeria to pay 50% of 1.8 trillion naira. Some, like we had in the previous report, some are supportive. Nasima says no, it will cripple a lot of businesses. And you and I also know that government needs these revenues to plow into the economy, to grow the economy. What's your take on all of this?
Yeah, there's a practice direction by the High Court, but we are kicking against that practice direction because
of the 50%?
Yes, we are kicking against it.
But it's embedded in the act establishing FIRS.
No. That practice direction was actually an instrument of the court, not an act.
Okay.
And the practice direction, I think people are being misguided. The practice direction can only be in place when you must have gone to tribunal, the tax appeal tribunal.
Okay.
And the tax appeal tribunal say you are supposed to pay this tax. Then if you are going to appeal to the High Court, the High Court say, okay, since the lower court say you are supposed to pay 50% before we continue.
Okay.
I don't think the practice direction is supposed to start from tax appeal tribunal. It's very, very wrong for tax appeal tribunal to say a company should pay 50% of a disputed liability. That would discourage so many investors into this country. That would discourage so many people doing business in Nigeria. A liability, sometimes out of human mistake or error, the revenue authorities can give you a wrong assessment. Sometimes it happens. I'm a tax practitioner. Sometimes they give us some of our clients assessment. I will prove to them this is wrong, and it's okay. We made a mistake. They will now cancel the assessment. Now, if assume that assessment is totally wrong, and the court is saying that somebody should pay 50% of it before you listen. I believe that practice direction has been challenged. It's a High Court. It's not a tax appeal tribunal issue. Practice direction is from High Court, not tax appeal tribunal. And even as at High Court, people are beginning to contest it. People are saying it is wrong for business. And
in that case, I haven't heard your explanation. Yeah. With the budget deficit we have as a country, can Nigeria afford tax evasion? Just summarily.
A budget deficit, tax is not the only source of revenue to the government.
But for us, that's one avenue that churns in a whole lot of money with the low price of oil.
Nigeria can afford tax evasion. But in order to make people or make companies not evade tax, government should also play its responsibility.
Okay.
Provide the social benefit to the people. There are some countries today, you walk into hospital, you'll be treated free. You have primary education, their children go to school free. The roads are good. You die 911, you die 999, police is at their door. People pay their taxes voluntarily. But here, people will ask you, why should I pay my tax when government does not rise up to its expectation? So it should be complementary. Taxation should be a dual concept. Don't be forcing people pay. Also, make people happy. That's what we call tax transparency. In tax transparency, we have a dual concept of tax transparency. One, the taxpayer must be transparent to pay his taxes rightly. Also, the government must
the person receiving the tax must be seen to be using that effectively.
Transparent to use the tax.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Kennedy, Wundu, tax expert. Thank you so very much. It's been a fruitful deliberation.
It's nice having you. Thank you very much.
Well, moving on, the French ambassador to Nigeria, Jerome Pax, has expressed willingness to strengthen and pursue French investors to come to Nigeria and invest in a view to having continued economic ties between the two countries. He was speaking during an official visit on trade mission to inland dry port in Kano. Mohamed Rabiu Ali reports.
Nigeria and France has a long-standing bilateral trade relations amounting to more than $2.3 billion in 2020. To further strengthen these economic ties, the French ambassador to Nigeria, Jerome Pax, was in Kano to follow up priorities set by President Emmanuel Macron on export-import investment. He says the two countries possess much-needed potentials to forge ahead in trade relations.
I'm very happy to be here because, frankly, when I go to France, it's always complicated to convince people to come to Nigeria, to explain them Nigeria, because the idea about Nigeria abroad is a lot of problems, insecurity, terrorism, and so on. And I'm happy to be able to tell them problems exist, but there are also many big successes in Nigeria. There are big projects that are developed in Nigeria. It is really possible to have great business, good business in Nigeria.
During his visit, Ambassador Pasque was conducted around the Inland Port construction project, which after completion will generate huge market for both countries.
We shall try to convince them, we shall explain to the French companies how interesting that will be for them to come here to discuss with you and to see what they can do here.
We are seeking linkages with experts in the intermodal transport that are already world-class players in France. So we partner with them to attain the status that Allah has already made its own vision and mission.
The project is expected to be completed in the next 2 months. Muhammad Rabiu Ali.
On that bilateral note, we wrap this edition of Business Express. Remember to keep in touch with us. Do send in your comments, observations, and suggestions. Also be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NTA's channel. Business Express returns next week.
wannan labarin ma yana peji na 36.
Ita kuma babban labarin wannan jarida shine ainihin
labarin da ke gaban jarida shine ta bayyana cewa
ọkwa ji ikenga eziokwu
nwanne m nwoke
Ikechukwu Ndukwe Igbo
mam iji wee mee ka ụbọchị na-aga n'anya ya
ọjọ́ léwútẹ́lú nù.
Nation fún ti òwúrọ̀ yìí ibẹ̀ náà ti sọ pé àwọn ìgbìmọ̀ aláṣẹ ìpínlẹ̀ Benue pàṣẹ wípé.
ní gbogbo àwọn ẹ̀ka ní ẹ̀ka ètò ẹ̀kọ́ ní ẹ̀ka ètò ìlera ní ẹ̀ka ètò ààbò.
There is a lot of fake news and report circulating, especially on social media, on the coronavirus. Do not believe or partake in the spread of these fake reports. If it is not on the official website or news from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, disregard such report. Only together can we beat this virus. Only together can we overcome this pandemic. Follow the instructions and guidelines provided to combat this virus. Most importantly, stay at home. Self-isolate, regardless of your status. The virus doesn't move unless we move. Let us work together to better Nigeria. Together, we can do this. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
This is the network service of the NTA.